What is up, guys? Mike Marlinski here with, wait for it, Wretched Sound. That Wretched Sound, the Metal Webzine, is no more. So, everything is... I've been getting a lot of questions, like, okay, so is the webzine Wretched Sound, and, like, the printed magazine is still the Metal Webzine, anti-web edition, or is the podcast still going to be called All the Metal Podcast? No. It's all Wretched Sound. Everything's under one name. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, all that. It's all Wretched Sound. I have a lot of reasons for this rebrand. I posted a short article about this and pinned it to the top of the blog. So if you go to wretched-sound.com, you can read my little blurb about why I did this rebrand, but it's not really an explanation. I haven't really given a full-on explanation to all the people who have asked yet, but I'm getting there. But I'm busy. Right now, we're getting back to the Black Sabbath series. This is going to be part 11 of that. We're on to the 11th studio album. It's Born Again. It's the one album that Sabbath did with Ian Gillan from Deep Purple. It was Bill Ward's last album. It was Geezer Butler's last album with Sabbath for 9 years. Very interesting point in the band's history once again, Ronnie James Dio, gone, off doing his solo thing at this point, and, yeah. So, at one point or another, I'm going to bring this up when I call up Bill Page, who's going to be my co-host once again from Wrong the Oppressor. But yeah, at one point or another, this was the album that, the band members didn't even want to release as Black Sabbath, because this was Bill Ward coming back to the band, and Vinny Appice, who played drums on Mob Rules, stepped away. Bill Ward came back in, so this was Bill Ward, Geezer Butler, Tony Iommi, and Ian Gillan from Deep Purple. After a lengthy situation and, a lengthy series of auditions, deciding who the new singer was going to be replacing Ronnie James Dio. So, at this point, they wanted to release the album Born Again as a supergroup under a different name. And then the record label basically stepped in and said, no, we're putting this out as a Black Sabbath record. So yeah, super interesting point in the band's history, and we're just going to give Bill Page a call. Sorry for the unusually long intro before making the phone call. Just wanted to get the Wretched Sound rebrand stuff out of the way, and then introduce the episode, and then let you know who the co-host is going to be. So it's Bill Page from Wrong the Oppressor. Again, we last had him on for Heaven and Hell, and pretty much going to be closing out the series with Bill, I think. We got a couple, got at least one coming up with Riley, who's a writer with us at Wretched Sound. And I also want to, before I give Bill a call, I also want to mention or announce, I already announced it on Facebook and Instagram, but Bill Page is a new full-time contributor here at the zine. So it's now Riley Howe, Bill Page, and myself doing Wretched Sound. So it's really cool to bring Bill on full-time, and to close out this Sabbath series, we've got these 9 episodes left. To close out the Sabbath series with 2 co-writers. It's pretty cool. Alright, let's give Bill a call.
Hello.
Well, hello, good sir. How are you?
Good. How you doing today?
Not too bad. I was just telling everybody that we've welcomed you to Wretched Sound.
Oh, yes.
And we appreciate you coming on board, and I'm really excited to have you as a contributor. You already had some ideas, you said, right?
Yeah, I got a couple.
That's awesome. No, I really appreciate you coming on board, and I'm really, really stoked about working with you, man. I think it'll be really cool.
Yeah, hopefully.
Oh yeah.
That's it. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, hopefully, I just don't hold myself back.
Oh, well, you're not. You're not that type of person. You don't seem like the type of person to hold back.
With the writing, I do.
Oh, yeah.
I get kind of caught up in my own head with things, so that kind of stops me sometimes.
No, I know what you mean. You get in but you get in a certain groove, you get in a certain habit of writing, and you, if you're really feeling what you're writing about, and you get some repetition behind you, you do a few pieces, like you'll come into a groove with yourself, and it'll flow naturally. I think you'll be fine.
Yeah, hopefully.
So we are here to discuss Born Again, and are you ready to proceed?
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay, he's ready. He's been raring to go. Okay, so right off the bat, how do you like Ian Gillan's vocals on this album?
I fucking love him.
Yeah.
He does a great job. I can't decide, like when I was listening to it today, I was like, I can't decide if it's a really good thing or a really bad thing that he only did one album with them.
Right. Well, it certainly makes it special. It makes it a standout piece, and the thing I've always said, and the thing I've read the most about him over the years, is there's a recurring quote, and that is his shriek is legendary. So, I mean, we only got to hear it over, Tony Iommi riffs for one record, but I mean, it's a standout album. It's a great album, and like that chemistry is it's unique. It's not necessarily the best chemistry of the band, but it's very unique to say the least. Are you a Deep Purple fan?
I'm not like huge into Deep Purple, but I think they're good. I appreciate them.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So aside from his work on Reunion, I think he did a studio track or two maybe for Reunion. Born Again was basically Bill Ward's last performance with Sabbath. Does his closing performance stand out, or could this be hindsight bias? He says, Bill Ward has said in interviews that Born Again was his strongest work, with Sabbath at least.
I mean, it's solid. There's nothing wrong with it. Is it the most interesting stuff he's done drum-wise? I don't really think so. It's like, I don't really have any complaints about it, but it's nothing, I feel like he has more standout moments on earlier work.
Yeah, for sure. He said in an interview that, that there were a lot of subtle things he did on the drums for Born Again that got lost in the mix, and that it's a horribly mixed album, and that a lot of things were lost, but he knows. He kept saying, I know they're in there. I know they're pressed into this album. So it is what it is. I didn't really I didn't have any big takeaways. I didn't think it was that bad of a mix, first of all, and I didn't have any big drum takeaways from this record either, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like more of a real, like, fucking rock record. I mean, there's a lot of great things about it, but it all, like, I guess if you want to look at it like that, and like standout moments, because I know you like to like break it down to different standout parts, but honestly, this one's all about the vocals and the guitar. Like, and
sure.
I guess that part's a little disappointing. I love this album, but if you really want to break it down like that, the lack of Geezer and Bill Ward doing more of what you hear them do on other albums is a little disappointing.
Right, sure.
But who knows where their heads were at? I mean, because after this album, Geezer Butler wasn't in the band again until, I think, Dehumanizer.
Yeah, I think it was 9 years. He wasn't in the band after this record. No, you're absolutely right. It's the rhythm section I felt took a step back, and it was all about. And I almost thought that like Tony Iommi's writing style and Ian Gillan's writing style were kind of clashing a little bit, but but in an interesting way. And there was kind of like this creative tug of war happening between them, because you have like your straightforward rock songs, like your upbeat like rock and roll parties, and then you have some of the darkest and most ominous material that Sabbath has written. Like, there are a few particular riffs that I jotted down to talk about later that I think it's, has like a certain dissonant quality. It's like the most evil and like some of the darkest shit that Tony Iommi has written, and some really evil like guitar effects are happening on this album too. Like, it's a super interesting juxtaposition between the two worlds, between Iommi and Gillian, I think.
No, you're right. I think that's what makes the album so interesting, though.
Right.
It's kind of like, it's like when we're talking about Never Say Die, and how that album was kind of like all over the place, which makes it an interesting album. This album isn't all over the place, but two very distinct, different approaches to metal.
Yep.
So, it blends together better,
Sure.
But the differences, I think kind of like the differences really complement each other well, and it just makes for a very interesting listen.
Yeah. I think a lot of people were turned off by this album, mostly because it wasn't what they were expecting. But I think, in hindsight, I think there are, at the same time, I think a good number of people went back and listened to this album a few years later and thought, wow, they really had something. Or at least that's, for me, like, hearing it so much later, and having, like, all these different Black Sabbath albums to choose from, like, yeah, it sticks out, but I mean, it's not all that different or that extreme compared to the other Black Sabbath albums. But, like, I can't imagine, like, it being 1983 and I've been listening to everything as it's come out, and then I suddenly hear this. I don't know what I would have thought in 1983. So,
yeah. After having Hell and the Mob Rules, it's
right,
like...
yeah.
And I think people can only take, like, change so much with the band.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe by that point they were just kind of like, all right, enough's enough.
Sure.
Even though, Ian Gillian is not like somebody to scoff at. It's like he's a fucking great singer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's like you put four really talented guys in a room, and it's about, how talented they are as individuals, but how that chemistry is going to work, how they're going to gel together, so...
Yeah, and I think it works great.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the things he does on this album are just, like, amazing. In Disturbing the Priest, I think, has some of the best vocal moments of any Sabbath album.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's a great track. It's got a funny history, too. So... I'm gonna bring this guy up a couple times, actually, because he says something kind of funny. But I read that Don Arden, Sharon Osbourne's father, put the new lineup together on paper before the band had rehearsed to make this record. So we just talked about the chemistry. So yeah, it's unlike any other Sabbath record, and it is it's super interesting, super unique. But it's not. I don't dislike this record. I actually love this record. It's not my favorite, but I mean, it's a cool moment in Sabbath time. So another hypothetical, alternate reality type question, I guess. So I also read that Michael Bolton had sent in an audition tape to replace Ronnie James Dio. So imagine Born Again with Michael Bolton on vocals, or any Sabbath for that matter. And how would that sound, and what kind of a world would we live in today had Michael Bolton finished out the Black Sabbath discography?
It might not be as bad as you expect it to be.
I don't think it would be bad. I just can't picture it. I can't hear it, but I don't think I would dislike it.
That's because people know Michael Bolton for a certain thing. But before he did that, he was in a failed hard rock band.
Right.
He was a rock singer who kind of got a second chance to sing, like, cheesy stuff. and he made a lot more money. I mean, Michael Bolton's career probably wouldn't be that great if he was on this album.
Well, no, right. Because Michael Bolton, the bulk of his success, I think, came from writing music and lyrics for other people, for other artists. Like, he was the backbone of a lot of classic songs that have become monstrous hits. So I don't think he would have accomplished that in Black Sabbath. But I would love, just like we got one Black Sabbath album with Ian Gillan on it, I would love for there to be one Black Sabbath with Michael Bolton on it.
That would be interesting to hear.
Just one.
Yeah, I don't think it would be bad.
Right. So, another interesting tidbit about this point in Sabbath time, this was almost the end of Black Sabbath, the moniker, or at least for that moment, because the band did not want to release Born Again under the name Black Sabbath, but were overruled by the record company. So do you agree with the business decision of keeping a more recognizable name, or do you think that Born Again should have come out as a separate supergroup?
I mean, you don't really know how that stuff's going to work. Part of me feels like maybe people would have accepted it more if it came out under a different name, being like, oh, this is the ex-Black Sabbath and ex-Deep Purple guys.
Yep.
But just because it seems that way doesn't mean it's always going to work out that way.
Sure.
And I think in the long term, it does the album more favors being a Black Sabbath album.
Yep.
But for that point in time, I mean, there's really no way to know how that could have gone. I mean, these can be strong albums, but then people are just like, well, I'd rather have another Black Sabbath album.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, you never know how that's going to go.
Because it's like a 50-50 split. I mean, half the album sounds like a more evil, darker, ominous, foreboding Black Sabbath, and then the other half of the album sounds like, I don't want to say it sounds like Deep Purple, but it's got that rock and roll party vibe.
Right.
That completely, there's a total contrast there, and I love it. It's great.
Yeah.
So, okay, so we were talking about this before I called you, actually. How do we feel about Ian's lyrics versus those of right? Yeah. So I know you want to talk about some tequila, but how do you feel about Ian's lyrics versus those of Geezer Butler or Ronnie James Dio?
Okay, Geezer Butler and Ronnie James Dio definitely have better lyrics. Because let's just face it, Ian's lyrics on this album, I don't want to say they're terrible, because they're not terrible. They work. But if it wasn't for his, excellent execution, they probably would sound worse. But some of them, it gets kind of silly. Like I was joking with you before, just remember there's no tequila. Because when he says that in Trash, it's just it just stands out. It's really not a great line, but it really just stands out.
Right.
But he can pull it off, I mean, I say that, but I don't listen to the album and think, oh man, these lyrics are so stupid. They're really not that great.
Right.
But he can deliver. So, and sometimes it's I feel that way sometimes with Clutch too. They sing about things that, if anybody else was doing it, I'd probably be forget this. But for some reason, he can deliver them.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Right. No, absolutely right. It's subjective, like all art is, and I think it's just another example of that creative tug of war between Ian Gillan and Tony Iommi, and it's just different. It's not bad. It's not wrong. It's different from all Sabbath, but we're also very shortly we're going to be getting into other albums by Black Sabbath that you can say the exact same thing about. So,
right. And actually, come to think of it, as we're saying this, and I'm thinking about it more, that kind of comes back to would I feel these lyrics were silly if it wasn't a Black Sabbath album?
Right. Exactly.
I mean, because because I guess, they're not, like, for a rock band, especially, like, around that time and the way some rock lyrics went, they're really not that silly at all. Am I just saying that because we're comparing them to Geezer Butlers or Ronnie James Dio's?
I mean, Trashed, Digital Bitch, and Hotline. Those are the 3 upbeat rock and roll party songs. And all 3 of those songs, in my opinion, could work as Van Halen songs. Or as Deep Purple songs. Or, like, any band with that vibe. But, Black Sabbath implies a certain darkness and depth and doom, what became known as doom, that feeling, and it's again, it's Ian Gillan crashing somebody else's niche, and the results are pretty hilarious. Like, it's such an evil album, and then the next track is funny. Like, it's super cool. It's such a fun listen.
And on a side note of that, do you know that when Ian Gillan does solo shows, he still plays Trashed?
No, but that's hilarious.
And he includes it because he did a big interview with the Hard Voice like a long time ago, because he released a solo album where it's a picture of him in front of the old Pink.
Yep.
He recorded it in Buffalo.
Right.
And he was talking about how, he'll still play Trash live, and I think, I don't remember, maybe he re-recorded it for that album, because he was talking about Tony Iommi helping him out.
Right. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And that is the song he wrote about the go-kart incident. Right? I mean, because that was something Tony Iommi said in an interview, was that, one of the reasons that Ian stuck out like a sore thumb is that he was writing songs about things that were happening at their practice space. At their practice space at that time, like while they were recording the album. So he crashed a go-kart outside the practice space, and that's what Trashed is about. Or at least that's what I read.
Okay, I didn't know that. I never read the stories, but I'm guessing the practice space had no tequila.
Right. Oh, yeah.
They would probably drink it all.
R.I.P. tequila. So, we enjoy talking about the artwork, whether we enjoy it or not. Whether we enjoy the cover itself or not. So, thoughts on the album cover. It has been cited as being one of the worst ever, not just in Sabbath's discography, but according to Kerrang, one of the 10 worst album covers of all time. Personally, when I first saw it, I loved it, and I had no prior knowledge of any of that criticism when I saw it. I just, because when I think of Black Sabbath album covers, the first one I think of is Paranoid, and how much I hate the cover of Paranoid. So if I'm comparing all other Sabbath album covers to Paranoid, like, it's hard to lose out. And I think the Devil Baby is cool. And another thing, I said I was going to bring up Don Arden again, because he said a very funny thing. But he used to tell Ozzy and Sharon and his daughter Sharon Osbourne that their kids resembled the Born Again Baby because he hated Ozzy that much. And I just think that's pretty fucking funny. And Ian Gillan has said on record that he vomited when he saw the Born Again cover.
Really?
Probably an embellishment. He was probably like, that's one ugly baby. But I just love the thought of Sharon's dad telling her that her kids look like the Born Again Baby. Like, that's just pretty funny to me. So, thoughts on the album cover. Your thoughts on the album cover.
I don't hate it. Like, when I first bought it, I liked it, and I think, and definitely, like, even like I remember I have this on vinyl, And again, like I probably mentioned before, this is one of those things that when I bought it, like vinyl was going out, and especially things like certain era Black Sabbath stuff was definitely trying to get cleared out of places. Like there's no tomorrow, so I got it pretty cheap. But I remember, like, you know, I don't really just like the cover art. I like the general layout. Like, it's got a real cool back cover to the album too.
Sure.
Which is something that you can't. Again, we've discussed the problems with Black Sabbath albums, and they, besides not having very interesting covers most of the time, they don't have very interesting layouts. But on this particular one, they really went like all out. Maybe carry over like Mob Rules, I felt did the same thing. You know, it had a really cool back cover to it also.
Right.
And they seem to carry that on with this album. I think the whole thing's laid out well.
Yeah.
I mean, I like the album artwork enough that when a hardcore band called Pulling Teeth made a baseball shirt where they ripped off this, they have that baby on it and it just says Pulling Teeth and that Black Sabbath logo.
Right.
I bought it. I bought it right away without thinking twice about it.
Sure.
I was like, oh, I'm born to get ripped off.
Right.
So.
Oh, you know who else? Because that baby is based on a black and white photo. And that black and white photo is also used by Depeche Mode for one of their albums, and I can't remember which one it is. But yeah, it's not a unique image to Sabbath by a long shot. I think it just went through those edits, and now it's, you know, it's red and it's purple and it's a devil baby and shit like this. But, you know, like we want to emphasize the devilness of it. But I mean, it's been around, and like, yeah, like you talked about Pulling Teeth, like other bands have used it, and it's a really cool image, and I dig it a lot. I would have bought it too. We're talking about ripoffs. The band Horseburner, they have a shirt. It's their name in the Metallica font, and instead of Kill 'em all, it says Grill 'em y'all. And it's like the same color scheme as the Kill 'em all cover, but it's just meat on a grill. And I bought that shirt before I ever heard the band. I walked in the Mohawk place, and that shirt was the first thing I saw when I walked past the merch table. I had never met those guys before, never listened to their music. I just bought that shirt. So I totally fucking get it. So yeah, that's what sells out to me anyway. No, that's yeah, for sure. So we talked about Trashed. We talked about Digital Bitch and Hotline and like the difference between the two distinct vibes on the album. So in your mind though, is this record a subtle battle for creative control, or did it just work out that way?
Yeah, I never thought about it that way. I feel like everything's very well balanced.
Right.
And even though it's definitely a different rock vibe, I mean, Black Sabbath does have their rock songs too. You know, even though this one is definitely noticeably different, I can see why you would get that idea.
Right.
Especially, like, I also didn't, if I was aware of it, I totally forgot that that Don Arden, like, kind of put things together for this album, which might be why this lineup only lasted one album. You know?
Yeah, totally.
Even though it's basically classic Sabbath with a different singer. But I don't know, I never really thought of it as any kind of creative differences.
Well, I know that shortly after this album was recorded, there was shortly after the tour, the Born Again tour, there was a Deep Purple reunion happening. And that was what largely pulled Ian Gillan away. And I know at the same time, Bill Ward had started drinking again. So, but that led to Bill Ward just never coming back. So, but I guess, like, he got help, and he's been sober ever since, and I still haven't listened to his solo albums. But, but I intend to. So yeah, it's interesting to see where people landed and what happened next.
Yeah.
So, okay, so getting into some more tracks. So that little segue piece, that creepy, like, I don't know if I think it's synth. I think it's largely synth, but Stonehenge is eerie as hell. I love that one. And it's the perfect setup for Disturbing the Priest. And you already pointed out how amazing the vocal work is on that song. But I love the opening riff of Disturbing the Priest. That might be, at least up until 1983, that might be Tony Iommi's most evil riff. And it's just, like, I think there might be, like, there's this toggling between the low register and the high register within, but there might even be, like, when he goes to the higher register, there might be, like, a subtle dissonant chord in there. Like, something that you wouldn't, like the kind of stuff that, like, Norma Jean or Converge does. But, like, or like Dillinger Escape Plan. But obviously, we're talking about, Tony Iommi, and it's 1983, so, like, it's not going to sound like that. But it's just, that was, when just breaking that riff down in my head, that was where my mind went, the idea of it. So that's really cool. And, Disturbing the Priest is lyrically based on noise complaints the band got from a church during band practice, which I think is fucking incredible. Despite, like, because when you listen to that song, you're not really, you read that song title and you're listening to that song and you kind of hear what he's saying, and it's like, you think it has this deeper, like, religious meaning, or like almost a satanic meaning, or at least some people do. But yeah, I thought it was hilarious that song is about noise complaints.
That is, because it's the best fucking song on the album, I think.
Disturbing the Priest, it's either that or the title track, but yeah.
Yeah, I just, like, love everything about it. Like all the riffs, everything they do musically on this song. It's probably the most interesting the rhythm section gets when they go into the little breakdown parts, which is definitely when, like, Ian's vocals really, like, shine.
Yep.
The way he goes in and out of those parts is just so fucking amazing. And I don't know if you've ever heard it, but what really helped make it stand out for me even more over time was, I know I brought it up before, the Hydra Head did these 7-inch in these Black Day comps. And Soylent Green, when they did a song on one, they didn't do a Sabbath song. They did a medley of 3, where they do Lord of this World, Sign of the Southern Cross, and Disturbing the Priest.
Right.
So you don't do the whole song, so you just do a medley of them. And that's the part they come into with Disturbing the Priest. Like, they end the medley with that, and they go into it from, like, the Sign of the Southern Cross into that, like, breakdown part of Disturbing the Priest. And it's so fucking good.
Well, you said Lord of this World, right?
Yes.
Because it's so funny that I didn't know about that, but it's so funny because Lord of this World is my favorite song on Master of Reality. Sign of the Southern Cross is my favorite song on that record, and then Disturbing the Priest is my favorite song on Born Again. So I need to check it out.
It's called Lord of the Southern Priest.
Mm-hmm.
And it's amazing. You will not be let down. And Soylent Green's an incredible band, so they do a great job. But yeah, it's like everything about that song is just so fucking good. Like, it's funny that the lyrics are so silly because he does not make them sound silly at all on that song.
No, that's what I was saying. Right, that's what I was saying about the Disturbing the Priest lyrics, because, like, the way he sings the parts and the way he words things, you wouldn't think it's about something that juvenile, And but then again, then he writes lyrics to a song like Trashed. So.
But yeah, he even makes that sound more serious than a go-kart accident.
Right. That proves his versatility as a lyricist.
Yes. He's going to bring the dramatic effect to every simple subject.
Right. Yeah. Hell yeah. And I just love that to learn that he was writing about shit happening at the studio while they were recording the album instead of just, pulling from his life like most vocalists do.
Yeah.
But that is an important moment in his life, so never mind. Being at the studio with Black Sabbath. So Zero the Hero is another one that kicks off with an evil note progression followed by the signature Iommi swagger that I love to point out, and it's those swaggerish, stomping riffs that make you think of a snake coiling around. And I think this whole album in general is those seriously dark melodies and accents and guitar effects. I think it's one of those types of songs, the darker songs on this album, totally match the album cover, in my opinion, and that's another thing that we've pointed out about Sabbath, how the music never matches the album cover, or how it's rare when it works out that way.
Yeah, but this one does. Those songs. The dark songs on this are fucking so good.
They're fucking dark. The dark moments on this album are fucking dark, and the happy moments on this album are really fucking happy.
Yeah, and it doesn't get boring.
Right. It's not a boring. If it's anything, if it's not anything, it's not a boring record at all.
No.
Okay, so album cover. I think the title track is, because when I first went back to this album, the title track was my favorite song right away, because it's this amazing blend of evil and melancholy, and it's one of those ballad type songs that has a darkness, and it's full of darkness and despair, and I appreciate that in Tony Iommi's writing. Like when he is writing riffs, even if it's like a simple clean passage with some chorus or delay, just the way that the title track is put together musically, and I like the lyrics of it too. Vocally, lyrically, everything. I think the title track is just a super, it's a powerful song. It's a very powerful song, and it conveys a lot of emotion, despite, what's being discussed lyrically. And yeah, but now that, like, I've been sitting with it for, a few weeks on repeat, just getting ready for this episode, Disturbing the Priest is definitely the best song of the album. But no, what are your thoughts on, how do you feel about the title track?
It's, again, you summed it up pretty well. I mean, it's just like a really good song, especially for like a more melodic song. I think Tony Iommi gets a lot more interesting, like with whatever effect he's using on his guitar with that.
Yeah.
It's just like it adds so much to it. Again, just to make it such a very interesting song. And again, I don't want to make it sound like I think anything Iommi does is, because I always think everything he does is above average. But as far as the melodic part goes, this is definitely one of the most interesting things he's done in those regards.
Right. Yeah. Super interesting song and guitar. There is a lot of subtle layering in the song that I don't think a lot of people get, because I know a lot of people find the title track boring. It's just a boring ballad, or it's just we've heard a million bands play a song like this where it's just slow and dramatic and full of emotion, but at the end of the day it's just a ballad. I don't think this is just some ballad. I think it's just a really, like, hauntingly beautiful and just powerful song.
You're right.
And yeah, the you brought up the guitar effects again, and I'm glad you agree. That is a huge, that's a big reason for my loving this song, is just that little bit of chorus or delay and those clean passages, like, completes the vibe. It wouldn't be the same without it.
Right.
So, Keep It Warm, the closer. Like, this is what I think is interesting about Keep It Warm. It's got that signature Sabbath, like, stomp to it. like it's a stomping banger of a song. And to me, it's the one moment on the record, and it's ironic because it's the last song. It's almost like it took them the whole length of the album to get their shit together. But
Yeah.
I think you know what I'm gonna say. Like, it's a solid balance between Tony Iommi and Ian Gillan's writing styles. So the album closer to me is like a true collaboration between the two. Like, this is my sound and this is your sound, the Black Sabbath sound, and this is what they sound like intertwined. It's not like the rest of the album where you're either getting one or the other. To me, Keep It Warm is, a perfect mingling of the two. Like, it's just the two heads colliding and their styles intertwined. So how do you feel about the closer?
After the rest of this discussion, I'm thinking that might be intentional. Because, you were mentioning like a competing songwriting. Maybe they weren't competing in songwriting. Maybe there was an intentional balance between all the other songs. Like 3 songs that were just really dark. 3 songs that were more rocking. Then one song that's the balance. And if you think about it, even though Deep Purple and Black Sabbath sound distinctly different, they clearly are coming from the same place.
Sure.
I think they probably, even though it might not sound like it on the surface too much, I think they probably just share a lot of the same influences, just kind of went in their own directions.
That would be awesome to learn.
I'm not really in anybody's head to say it, but kind of looking at the last song in those terms, maybe everything about this album and maybe it was all intentional. Especially if they wanted to call it something else.
Right.
Maybe they had this, and I mean by that point, with it being those other 3 guys, and nobody in there was a rookie.
Right.
They've all been doing this for well over 10 years, and
right.
By that point,
right.
So they knew what they were doing. So it's quite possible that they had a different way they were going to do this, and because it was called Black Sabbath, it's not as obvious. But when you talk about that song as being like a perfect balance, I think maybe it wasn't as much as a compromise, but they were just straight up like, maybe we should do this album this way.
Right. No, that would be awesome to learn if it was an intentional build to that perfect blending of styles at the end. And I've always thought about the album title in those terms. Like, is there a double meaning or even a triple meaning behind the album title? Because of all the changes the band went through, and then a lot of people, there's a number of people out there and they associate it with Satan, and it's the Antichrist being born, and that's what the baby's doing on the cover and all this. But, it's also Black Sabbath being reborn, even if this lineup only lasted the one album. Like, it is Black Sabbath reimagined.
Right. And if they wanted it to be another band in the first place, that also makes it make more sense. Like, if they wanted to call it Born, maybe they had everything about the album was supposed to be like that, except it wasn't supposed to be Black Sabbath.
Right.
And it works in 2 different ways, because it's Black Sabbath and Deep Purple.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? So for like all of them, it was like a new beginning that just didn't take off. Like, you know what I mean? It's like there's so much about this, and it's like, somebody could just ask them the right questions.
Right. What formats do you have this on?
I only have it on vinyl. And I think have it on my phone.
What does the vinyl look like? Do you have a picture disc or something, or is it just black? Or
mine's just black.
I don't know. Is there anything around the needle, like around the center of the record, or no? Like any.
And I can't pull it out now because it's at my other house.
Oh, okay. I'm asking because I have a reissue. I have it on vinyl, and I have it on cassette, and I have it on CD, and I have a certain reissue of the CD. I can't remember what year, but it has a really cool. Just to get back to the cover art, it has a really cool image on the disc itself. It's the baby. I'm just gonna pull it out right now. So it's the baby. It's like the silhouette of the baby, and there's also like I thought it was a dragon at first, but there is a no. It could be Lucifer. It could just be any old demon, but it's a devil-like character with wings and like the obvious tail, and then the right hand is extended and levitating above the opened right hand is the star. And I think the next record in order is Seventh Star. So I that was something kind of cool that I looked at, and then I was thinking about the purple background of the cover, and I don't know if that's supposed to be symbolic of Deep Purple or something like that. I mean, it's not like a deep purple. It's like a lighter. I don't know what shade you would. It's like, I don't know, like the exact shade of it, but it's I don't know. Like I could be overthinking everything now, but like I'm starting to see all these things.
Maybe. I mean, I don't know. It's like they're not. These guys aren't dummies, and they're artists, so it's really possible, I think, that they overthink it and kind of go to those lengths. I mean, they did get another Deep Purple member to sing on Seventh Star, so
right.
Or at least Tony Iommi did. So
right. Are you open? Are you available for that discussion?
Oh, hell yes. Honestly, the next one, I mean, like, right now, mind to anybody who's paying attention to this, I love all the Ozzy Sabbath albums. It's like what I grew up on. But I don't think people talk enough about, from this point forward, about Black Sabbath.
Yep.
So this is where I'm getting to my point where I'm just like, yes, I'm going to talk about any Sabbath album, especially from this point on.
Right, yeah.
Tony Martin, man.
Oh yeah. We're just a couple records away from Tony Martin hour. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let me just pull up the schedule. I think I have you on the rest of them, honestly, man. So yeah, I have you for. Yeah, I mean, if you are down, I have you on all of them except Cross Purposes.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we got yeah, so what do we got left? We got Seven Star, Eternal Idol, Headless Cross. I know you're really looking forward to that. Tear.
One of the best.
Dehumanizer, Cross Purposes, Forbidden, 13, and then I'm gonna close with The Devil You Know, just because even though Devil You Know came out is technically not Black Sabbath, and it came out before 13, I think I'm gonna close with Devil You Know for sure.
Oh, it's a worthwhile album to do it with. It's amazing, and it's basically Black Sabbath.
Yeah, I absolutely, totally, 100%.
You know. So.
Did you have anything to add? Did you have any closing thoughts on the matter?
I mean, again, and this is something I'm probably going to say at the closing of every single one from this point forward. If you don't like this album, revisit it. Don't cheat yourself. It's a fucking banger. I mean, there's not a bad song on this. I personally, regardless of what I might think lyrically, I would take this album over any Dio Sabbath album.
Wow. That's heavy. That's heavy. I don't think anything can top Dehumanizer for me, but that's a hot take right there. I think I don't think I've ever heard anyone say that about Born Again. But that's cool, and that's why you're here, Bill Page.
I mean, it's such a good album. Again, after revisiting it and listening to it again for a few times, it just kind of gives me more of an appreciation of just how well put together it is. And even after this conversation about it, it brought up things I never thought about with it. And I'm just like, man, I think it was even a better album than I thought it was before we started this conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely feel stronger about it now that we've talked about it for an hour.
You know, it's kind of, I feel like all these pieces that I've never thought about kind of really came together.
For sure.
I think regardless of what the results might have been, now I think I feel kind of bad that they did call the Black Sabbath album.
Yeah.
If where we came to was right, then they really had a bigger idea for this.
Right. Had they had they been that methodical and structured it in such a way as to get that big reveal across at the end with "Keep It Warm," then yeah, I mean, this should have been. Well, you know what? We got what we got, and it's incredible, and more people should be talking about it.
Yeah, and like you said to me, it's part of what makes it a more special album too, because of that.
Yeah, because you're always going to have that what if in the back of your mind, but that draws you even closer to the record.
Right.
All right, well, I will let you go for this evening, and we'll be talking about Seventh Star very soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me out, Mike.
All right, talk to you soon, man.
Talk to you soon. Later.